Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. And as you can tell, my voice is still not up to its normal levels. I'm still very much suffering from the impact of the strep throat. But great news is I'm definitely getting better. I don't know how well my voice will do this morning as I try to get back into doing my morning musings, but I'm going to do the very best that I can. I've got to tell you, I've got a ton of filming to do in preparation for the upcoming Preterist Pilgrim Weekend. I've got some Now TV filming to do. My wife and I were talking about it just day before yesterday, and she was going, "How are you going to do this?" I said, "I don't really know." I said, "We're just going to have to see how my throat does." And like I said, I'm obviously much, much better. 2 days ago, I couldn't even begin to talk without going into coughing spasms. And this morning, it feels better. So, Lord willing, by the end of this week, my voice is going to be back unless I overuse it, and hurt it. Okay, so here's where we are. We are continuing our study of the Olivet Discourse. I have shared with you how the traditional view of the Olivet Discourse is that Jesus predicted the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. The apostles immediately asked him, "Tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" Many presuppositions underlie the interpretation of Matthew chapter 24 and verse 3. The basic assumption is the apostles confusedly, wrongly, ignorantly linked the fall of Jerusalem with the Lord's coming at the end of time and the end of the current age. See, the apostles were, you'll have to excuse me, the apostles were dumber than a box of rocks. They had no idea Jerusalem and the temple was, number one, they had no idea it's supposed to ever be destroyed, and number two, they assume, the commentators do, that the apostles already believed in the end of the Christian age, the end of time, and Lord's coming back at the end of time as a 5'5" Jewish man riding on a cumulus cloud. So the commentators bring to their interpretation of Matthew chapter 24 and verse 3 a boatload of presuppositions, none of which are true. They impose then those presuppositions onto the text. And as a result of that, they then begin to go down into the Olivet Discourse and they try to find a dividing line where Jesus spoke about, number one, the fall of Jerusalem, which they admit occurred in AD 70, and then where he shifted gears and began to talk about the end of time. Again, assuming that there's supposed to be an end of time, there's supposed to be an end to the Christian age, all of which is false. The general consensus is widely accepted that Matthew 24:36 and the parallel of Mark 13:32 is that when Jesus said, "But of that day and hour knows no man," and in Mark 13:32 expanded it and said, "No, not the angels, not the Son, but the Father only." Here we have, as one commentator put it, the continental divide of the Olivet Discourse. From verse 36 all the way through the end of chapter 25, verse 46, Jesus is supposedly talking about his coming at the end of the current Christian age. Well, what I've been doing in our discussion, and we've been focused on Matthew 25:14 and following, where Jesus told the parable of a certain man, a wealthy man, who decided to go into a far country. And he gave talents to his servants. And then after a long time, he returned. And we are told, okay, here we have proof positive that Matthew 24:36 changes the subject from this generation shall not pass until all of these things are fulfilled to a discussion of those things that would happen after a long time. And once again, presuppositions take over and tell us, well, after a long time is obviously the 2,000 years since Jesus told the parable. Because after all, he said, no man knows the day or the hour. Matthew 24:36 and Mark 13:32 are in reality the linchpin of the view of a divided discourse. Now, we have been focused on this absent master motif, and that's what I want to continue. But I've been sharing with you the New Testament passages which deal with the absent master motif. And by the way, every single passage of the return of the Lord is what? It's a prophecy of the return of the absent master. Because after all, everyone admits, do they not, that Acts chapter 1, Jesus' ascension is the master ascending into the heaven, and he's now absent. See? So every passage in the New Testament that talks about the return of the Lord, the coming of the Lord, his presence, is talking about the return of the absent master. So we are told, because Jesus said, no man knows the day or the hour, no, not the angels, no, not the Son, that means that even though the New Testament writers affirm that the coming of the Lord had drawn near, James 5, 6 through 8, 1 Peter chapter 4, they couldn't really know that. Because as one commentator put it, if Jesus didn't know the time of his return, then James and Peter and John certainly didn't. Well, once again, and this is all review, and I know that, but it's critical. It's been a week, right? This is critical. Those who make that argument are overlooking the work of the revelatory Holy Spirit. Jesus said, I'm going away, i.e., the absent master. It is expedient for you that I go away. If I do not go away, the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, will not come. But when he is come, he will guide you, the apostles, into all truth. He will not speak of himself, but he'll speak of me, Jesus said. And he will speak of righteousness and of judgment to come. Okay, so the Holy Spirit, when he came, when he was given to the apostles, would guide them into all truth, and he would reveal things to come. Well, in the epistles then, after the Holy Spirit had been given to the apostles, what were they doing? Through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, sent by the Father who knew the day and the hour of Jesus' return, the absent master's returned, it is the Father revealing to those apostles that the time had drawn near. Now, I'm almost out of time already on this rehearsal video, but I shared with you Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. So let me go back over that territory to bring us back up to speed here on this Monday morning. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to show you something even more powerful from our study of the term that is used in Revelation chapter 1 and verse 1. We have to remember what Revelation 1 verse 1 says. The revelation of Jesus Christ. This is the revelation about Jesus, which God, that's the Father, who knew the day and the hour, right? Which God gave to him to show to his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent as signified these things, and Jesus was to give it to the angel who was to give it to the church, to tell them the time, the kairos, the divinely appointed time is at hand. Now, I shared with you, and again, this is somewhat of a review, I understand that, but I think it's important to go back over this territory and to drive it home. The Father, the Father was telling Jesus to tell the churches, to tell John to tell the churches these things. What things? The things about the coming of the Lord. So the Father, who knew the day of the Lord, is the one that's going to say these things must shortly come to pass. It is the Father who knew the day and the hour that was going to inspire his own Son to say, behold, I come quickly. It was the Father who is now saying these things must shortly take place. Well, I pointed out that that Greek term that is translated as must shortly take place is from the Greek term entokai. This term is only used 7 or 8 times in the New Testament. Now, we are told by those who attempt to escape the force of the time statements, well, entokai doesn't mean how soon, how imminently the event is, or how imminent the event is. It just simply means that when it finally takes place, after a long time, when it finally takes place, it will happen with speed, with rapidity. And I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that is one of the most desperate, illogical, and distorted definitions of entokai and shortly come to pass that one can possibly imagine. So what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to examine the occurrences of entokai, this exact precise form, in the New Testament, and I'm going to show you that if it means with rapidity and not imminence, in Revelation 1:1 and Revelation 22, if that's what it means in Revelation, then it is a radical change from what it means everywhere else without exception. You don't want to miss that. In the meantime, let me encourage you to get a copy of my book, Who is This Babylon?, in which I have an in-depth discussion of entokai, how it's used in the New Testament, how it's used in the book of Revelation, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that the emphasis is not on rapidity versus imminence, but rather it is imminence coupled with rapidity. It's not either or, it is yes, it is both. Okay? Go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. Go to my store, order the book, Who is This Babylon? Send me a note that says you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll refund your shipping, and that will save you $5. Okay, sorry for the repetition for this morning, but it was necessary. I've got a whole lot more. You do not want to miss it, so I'll see you on the flip side.